Since our beginning in 1989, Liberty Counsel has created a family of ministries that include law, policy, education, evangelism, discipleship, prayer, humanitarian relief, missions, and printing. Each ministry is independently supported and has a distinct mission. Liberty Counsel, our flagship ministry, is one of the nation's premier legal organizations, advancing religious freedom, life, and family in the courts. Liberty Counsel Action, our 501c4 ministry, works in the nation's capital, in the states, and on the local level, advancing public policy. Faith and Liberty brings the gospel to Washington, D.C. through prayer, Bible studies, Christian fellowship, and pastoral care. Covenant Journey Discipleship for students that lasts for generations. Covenant Journey Travel, a life-changing experience for travelers of all ages in the lands of the Bible. Covenant Journey Academy, a full-service K-12 online Christian academy, available to families and around the world 24/7, 365, with more than 150 courses, all taught by certified teachers. Christians in Defense of Israel is an education and advocacy organization that supports Israel and the Jewish people. Liberty Relief International provides humanitarian aid and spiritual support to the suffering and persecuted Christians worldwide, offering food, shelter, medical care, and hope. Liberty Prayer Network is an international prayer and intercessory ministry. Mobilize provides a platform for missionaries to raise support for a wide variety of missions. New Revolution provides creative communication and printing services. Liberty Counsel is a movement whose various ministries are changing the course of history by transforming lives and creating precedent that lasts for generations. Learn more and get involved now at lc.org.
I'm so glad that you've joined us across your Christian television network. You just got a sneak peek about Liberty Counsel, and I'm thrilled to be able to sit down in studio with the president of Liberty Counsel Action, my friend John Stemberger. Great to have you here, John.
Paul, it's great to be with you. It's been quite a while. Been here many times, but it's great to be here again.
Yes, yes, and you are leading Liberty Counsel Action. We heard it alluded to, 501c4 branch of Liberty Counsel. Talk about what it is when they say Liberty Counsel Action, because people need to take action. And how people can get involved.
Well, we're engaged in the great moral and social and policy issues. First in Washington, D.C., our man on the ground, Jonathan Alexander, been up there for 8 years, very credible attorney who's been very influential. But we advocate on life, family issues, religious liberty issues, but then also defense of Israel, supporting limited government and national defense. So it's a very wide platform to discuss almost any foreign or domestic policy issue you could want, and we do that from a biblical basis and a conservative perspective.
That's wonderful, and I know that you definitely are making a major dent, if you will, to make sure and preserve the values this nation was founded upon. One of those values obviously is the issue on life. You've published some books on that, and talk about what are some of the initiatives you're doing as it relates to the life issue.
Yeah, so, you know, everybody has a different calling, right? Even as a Christian, we all have different callings, but everybody's, irrespective of what your calling is, we all have a passion for the gospel. That's kind of the main thing, the Great Commission, right? Well, same way in a policy, in a moral sense, irrespective of what your calling is in life, we all need to have some type of a passion for the life issue. It is so primary. It is so very central to everything that we do. It's kind of like you can't live during the time of Hitler, right, with Bonhoeffer and not be concerned about the destruction of the Jews. I mean, it's just such a commanding moral issue. And so in the same way, we want to encourage every single Christian, frankly, every single citizen, irrespective of their faith, to see the valuing of life, the dignity of the human being as a central issue which they should have some passion for and some participation, whether just giving or being concerned or reading or being educated, whatever it is. Everybody can't do what I do or Matt Staver does or Lila Rose or, you know, whoever. But everybody has to have a concern for the issue. And so since the reversal of Roe versus Wade, which was great, there's been a lot of changes. It hasn't all been good. The good news is that we've labored for 50 years to see this happen. And the Supreme Court finally said, no, there's no fundamental right to abortion in the federal Constitution, which we've been hammering forever. And thanks to President Trump's amazing judicial appointments, we now have judges that primarily, for the most part, believe in textualism. They actually want to read the words. The words actually mean something. You can't make Play-Doh out of them. And so we've seen this great victory. But now we have new challenges as a result of that, because we now have states, many states are very pro-life, like Florida. We now have a heartbeat bill. We've seen a reduction in abortions for the first time ever in the history of our state, a significant reduction. But in many states, they now have fundamental rights in their state constitutions where abortion is protected, just like freedom of speech and freedom of religion. It's really tragic. And those are going to be very hard to deal with. So we have a nation divided. But one of the shifts that's happened is that when we think of abortion, normally people think of a surgical abortion, going into a doctor's, physician's office, a physician, an abortionist's office, and having that surgical procedure done where the child is ripped apart or poisoned to death on site. But what's happening now is that almost 65% of all abortions are chemical abortions. So that's a very different thing. When we think about this procedure now as advocates, we have to think that is what we have to talk about, because that is the main thing, and that is going to continue to grow for a variety of reasons. Doctors are increasingly unwilling to do this barbaric procedure because it's brutal. There's social implications to it. Their conscience is involved. There's clinics that are shady. They're closing down every other day. You've got lots of problems with this. And so states are restricting that as well. Well, the chemical abortions are now growing, but it comes with new problems and new challenges.
What have you learned about chemical abortions and also related to policy in our country with the chemical abortion issue?
Well, really, the reality is that the chemical abortion is much more harmful to the woman. We talk about abortion harms women.
Yeah.
In a surgical abortion, you have hemorrhaging, perforation of the uterus, you have all kinds of complications that can come up. But in a chemical abortion, it's so much more tragic. There's not a third party involved. You're actually putting the pill in your mouth. So think about that. The woman has to live with the fact she's actively doing this. I hate to talk about this, but it's the reality. She's physically giving birth to a dead baby, a bloody situation that could take 2 to 3 to 4 days. The first pill basically starves the baby to death in the mother's womb, cuts off the nutrients, and then the second pill induces labor. If you saw the movie Unplanned with Abby Johnson, you realize this is a brutal thing. I mean, this woman has to hemorrhage with blood, and there's tissues going everywhere, and you have to see the baby. I was just at a pregnancy conference of National Pregnancy Centers, and it was horrible. They had a little memorial where the pregnancy center directors were just talking about, they had a woman call them, and he was just sobbing, saying, "I wish I had listened to you. I'm holding my dead baby, and I wish I had listened to you. This is not what I thought it was at all." So there's a lot of trauma to the woman. I mean, she has to see this, she has to experience it. You know, it's very removed.
The emotional scars for the lifetime.
So the trauma, and there's studies now that show that the trauma, the depression, the nightmares, the rates of suicide are so dramatically increased when women undergo chemical abortions. Also, we're seeing a 500% increase in emergency room visits, because there's lots of complications. If you don't take the pill in the right timing, if you don't take it in the right gestational age of the child, a lot of these pills are being illegally mailed, in violation of federal and state laws. And so women are just taking these things from all kinds of places. They may not be pure. So we're seeing a great reaction to this. So it's kind of an underground network. In addition to the, quote, legitimate legal chemical abortions, there's lots of underground chemical abortions that are taking place as well.
So what do you see as the solution? Is there a solution? This thing has gone so rampant I guess education is one thing, which is something Liberty Counsel Action does. But what are other action steps, if you will, or a solution for people who are dealing with this issue, or to try to prevent them from even going down this road?
Yeah. So 2 big changes that have occurred in the last several decades. One is the shift from surgical to chemical abortions. The second is the secularization of our culture. And that's significant because there's 2 messages as pro-lifers we have. Abortion hurts women, and abortion kills an unborn child.
That's right.
We got women now that lack such conscience. They're just like, I'm happy about my abortion. I mean, they're literally promoting this. They're just in your face with it. reports of women that are sidewalk counseling are just saying they're just openly, they know they're killing their baby and they don't care about it. Their consciences have been seared. So I think we really have to show, in addition to the humanity of the unborn child, that kind of assumes a Christian worldview where we're actually concerned about someone who's weaker and is vulnerable. We can show women also that abortion hurts women. That appeals to the selfish nature. But either one of these messages can save a baby. Right? If the woman says abortion hurts women and doesn't have the abortion, that's a win. If the woman says, I don't want my baby killed, because that's uncompassionate, horrible, inhumane, that's a win. But we have to use both messages because of the secularization of culture. The one big issue, though, that I want to talk to you about is one of the things in 2000, year 2000, when they approved the abortion pill, they didn't anticipate fully. When the FDA approved this, they did a very cursory environmental analysis. They did not do a deep analysis on what is the results of dumping down the water system in the toilets, literally now hundreds of thousands every year of fetal tissue, babies in various forms of development, and the chemicals, the active chemicals in the abortion drug, which have a certain property that actually makes them alive still and active, even though there's been a filtration process. So we do know now that there's some trace elements of the abortion pill and of fetal remains in our water system.
Wow.
Now it's different, it's a complicated, nuanced issue because there's certain, various water treatment plants have various levels of sophistication, but this is a major, major issue that Liberty Counsel Action is going to take a leadership role on throughout this country.
Wow.
If we can show America clean water is being threatened by chemical abortion, which is now the majority of abortions, we have this is like, the Joker poisoning the water in Gotham City. I mean, this is a horrible thing that could really capture the attention of our country and turn the abortion issue around in addition to providing clean water. So we want to ask the FDA, we want to ask the Environmental Protection Agency to relook at this, really do the studies and research. We're in the process of having major academic institutions do research on the purity of our water, how much of the trace elements are actually in the water from the abortion chemical drugs and from the fetal remains, because there's a certain plasticity to fetal remains that cannot be necessarily filtrated out of the water. So we're trying to study all of that. And then we want to figure out, do the trace remains, are they enough to make a person really sick or ill or have cancer-causing issues? These are big questions. Now, unfortunately, President Trump has said he's not going to touch the chemical abortion laws, but he has told RFK Kennedy to now look at the dangers and the risks to women. That's an open field. So that's something we're going to be able to provide research and information to the FDA and to the EPA and other agencies as well.
That's wonderful that you're taking that approach and that stance and to lead. And we need more people to stand up and be counted like Liberty Counsel. If somebody says, well, hey, I'm watching this and I might could lend some insight, they're certified or they know about this issue, they could reach out to you, right?
Sure.
They can just connect and that kind of thing.
At our website, we'd love to hear from them. Yep.
That's great. Now, also, as it relates to life and even the indoctrination of our kids in the school systems, people more and more are finding out about books that are in libraries that are not appropriate, et cetera, et cetera. And I know years ago, you always talked about a gab phone, for example, to protect. Talk about some of the initiatives there that people need to be alert to, but also that Liberty Counsel Action is leading on.
Well, this is not an issue that we've directly addressed, but it's certainly a cultural issue. I mean, it's a common sense issue. Why are we going to give a supercomputer, right, more powerful than Apollo 13 to a little child?
That's right.
Mom and dads, we don't need to give smartphones to kids, bottom line.
That's right.
I mean, if your child thinks they need a phone, there's something called a light phone, there's a gab phone. My kids have gab phones, even though they're now reaching almost 17, they have gab phone. There's no internet, there's no apps, it's just texting, phone calling, there's an FM radio on there, just some tools. There's a thing that shows some navigation tools, whatever, but it's not a smartphone where they can get the trash, because the other side, the LGBT community and all the trash of this transgender nonsense that's being promoted primarily through social media.
Yeah.
And these kids are imbibing this stuff. I mean, all the doctrines of hell and everything, as much wickedness you can think of is in somewhere online, and all that stuff is being accessed through Instagram, through Facebook, through TikTok. And our kids are breathing this stuff. And little Christian mommy going, oh, we wanted to be like everybody else. No, Mom, just say no. We have to say we're Christians. We're going to do things differently. This is what I tell my kids. We're going to do things. We're just going to be different, guys.
That's right.
Think about an Orthodox Jewish family. They got to tell their kids we're just going to be different. We need to do the same things. Christian kids, we're just going to be different. We're not going to be like everybody else. And that's okay. Yeah. And I'm doing this to protect you, and you'll understand someday, and just try to walk them through it, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just telling them what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think now more than ever we have to be alert to what our kids are being taught, and that's why the online school with 150 different courses that Liberty Counsel has, I mean, that's a solution for those that maybe are their values are being compromised in their school system they're exposed to. You know, I know in Florida it used to be called the Hope Scholarship. And I think Congressman Byron Donalds, that may be our future governor, who you know well, that we know well, has also helped to renew that initiative. So if your values are compromised, you just fill out a one sheet and you report it, I think, to your counselor, and they help you get a credit to find a school.
And the bullying goes both ways. If your kid brings a big King James Bible to class and he gets harassed, guess what? Invoke the Hope Scholarship, get him transferred to another school and get a scholarship for it. So
and if you don't want to go into a school, they've always got the online solution, right? So we're good on that front. Talk about where you see us in America. You know, what can we do as the church in America to stand up and be counted and address these social moral issues? Because many people, when there's election cycles, they're not even registered to vote. You know, my friend George Barna, who we know well, you know, he has all the stats on this stuff, but it's amazing. Only less than 4% are being discipled today in America. So we have churches that have a form of godliness but deny the power thereof. Talk about what you see us doing to mobilize people to be engaged to vote.
So first off, we have to talk about pastors.
Yeah.
But before I come down on pastors, I want to say that we have to go easy on pastors.
Yeah.
They're an endangered species. I mean, literally every day. They're falling to the wayside morally and every other way. They're quitting their jobs, retiring early. This is a very difficult job. You're literally managing hundreds of people that have all kinds of problems and issues.
Yeah.
It's a very, very challenging situation. There's pressures on them. But at the same time, we can't let them off the hook.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they are the key. They are the answer to maintaining moral clarity within the church and within America.
Good.
If the church folds, it's over. God's plan is the church. That's plan A. There's no plan B.
That's right.
If the church folds, we're done. I mean, we saw during COVID what happened. We almost saw a collapse in the social order because what holds people together, holds their lives together, that community. I mean, even you think about, it used to be Boy Scouts, fraternal organizations, people came together in groups. This doesn't exist anymore. The church is the primary place where people can get together and form a cohesive social group and actually relate to each other and not just have, you know, interactions online. So the church is very, very important. To maintaining our civilization, to maintaining the republic, to maintaining the moral order, and just having an orderly society. So pastors need to understand, they need to feel the weight of that to transfer some of that. And we're not asking you to transform your whole congregation to do something like Jerry Falwell or Jimmy, you know, Jerry Falwell did, or D. James Kennedy did. Yeah. If you want to do that, great. But at least every time there's an election, you need to say, look, this is a responsibility. You know, you're stewarding something God has given you. And if you don't vote or don't vote, the only thing worse than not voting is voting for the wrong person. Right? So if you don't vote, it's like you're not a good steward of this beautiful gift that God's given us. Many countries don't have this gift.
That's right. I want to chime in that on the local school board level or state level or you know, national level, you've got to vote for candidates up and down the ticket whose policies are closest to biblical worldview, whether those candidates are believers in Jesus Christ or not. And that's why you've got to go, you know, get connected to Liberty Counsel Action, because you have information, you provide resources for churches. If you know, talk about what you do to help churches as it relates to election seasons.
Well, Matt Staver, our founder, has wonderful materials, videos for pastors showing them that they can really do almost anything. You just can't open your checkbook and write a check to a candidate, and you can't vote for a person. And even if you did, it really doesn't matter. All these laws restricting churches are really unconstitutional. So that whole business about being concerned about the IRS or your letter, it's really a ruse. Most pastors they have fear. Yeah. They fear the lady with purple hair who's got a lot of money says, Pastor, if you talk about that again, I'm going to leave or pull my ties. And so it's really a matter of courage. Courage is the main issue for the church. It's the main issue for pastors, in my judgment, as I've understood this issue. There are some theological issues, concerns about going too far or whatever, but look, just talking to people about voting, I mean, come on. Yeah. Render unto Caesar. We have a form of government that requires us to participate. Yeah. Think about that. That's right. It's like disobeying the form of government if you don't participate. Yeah. So this is something that's, especially in the American form of government that we have a representative democracy that exists under a constitutional republic, and so we have to participate. We are a government by, of, and for the people. And so it's disobedience to the scripture, right, to disobey the civil magistrate if we don't participate, because it all assumes our participation. And Christians ought to be right there more than anybody else with moral clarity and regularly scheduling voting, understanding what they're doing when they get there, and be informed.
Yeah. You know, if you're a Bible-believing Christian, you're the largest voting bloc in America. And we wouldn't have to deal with half the stuff we deal with in America if the church would not only be registered to vote, but to be engaged and stand up and be counted. And all you have to do is be informed and, like you said, not be afraid. Because either we're selling out to somebody's money, or we're sold out to Jesus Christ, who is the source of not only all creativity, He is our provider. And I think now more than ever, we have to, you know, Jesus said, I'm coming back for a church without spot or wrinkle. None of us are perfect, but we better stand up and be counted and say, you know what, I've got to give an account one day. He's not going to say, how big was your church, how many people, how much money came through there, none of that stuff. He's going to say, what'd you do with my gospel? And for you to vote for politicians who are contrary to biblical worldview policy, you're basically saying you don't care about the gospel. That's I know that's maybe sound brash, but that's what I think people, you know, when you don't vote or don't register to vote, you're saying just whatever sarah, whatever comes, you're not engaged at all. That's right. And this nation was founded on a biblical worldview, you know. So I'm preaching to the choir, talking to my brother John. But John, you've seen a lot over the years. You were involved in, is it Rifka Berry? Is that how you say it? You helped lead that charge. Where do you see, as it relates internationally, and I'm kind of throwing you a little curveball here, but where do you see as it relates to freedom of speech and policy, even with some of our Muslim brothers and sisters that are maybe, if you will, wanting to have their voice heard, but then sometimes they're in pulpits with churches because people don't realize it's a different religion. They say, oh, we're all one religion. It's not. Can you expound on that?
So that's a tough question. There's a lot of things you could talk about. I do think as believers we need to be concerned about everybody's religious liberty. It's a principle. Even with religions that we don't like. Now, in the public square, let's go ahead and be prophetic. Let's talk about correct doctrine and all that, and talk about why Christianity is true and understanding the basic creeds of the faith and all that. But at the same time, we need to defend even groups, the rights of groups that we don't necessarily agree with and don't have similar doctrine, because it could be us someday. And so I think that's something that Christians need to embrace. There's tension there, right? Because on one hand, we want to proclaim the truth. We want to say this is truth, this is error. But at the same time, they have a right to be wrong and have a right to proclaim their faith even if it's wrong or very wrong. Now, there's limits to that when it comes to conduct affecting other people. You know, so I think, but by and large, that's a huge issue. I think Islam is interesting because it's taken some turns. I think in America, people understand it now for what it really is. They've seen it. Back when we had Rifka Berry's fight, I mean, even my good friend Mike Huckabee was saying, oh, she's just a rebellious child. We didn't understand how radical it was, but I think a lot of that is gone now, at least domestically speaking, and it's overseas, but there are still infiltration that's happening. I love what President Trump is doing. He's just cleaning house in terms of finding those, you know, we talk about enemies at home and enemies abroad. He's finding the enemies at home and he's smoking them out.
Yeah.
And that's just great. So I think that, free speech and liberties are different in different countries because they have different rules. Yeah. Everybody doesn't have the kind of constitution we have here in America.
Yeah. What else do you want people to know as we get ready to wrap up about Liberty Counsel action?
Well, Liberty Counsel Ministries, as you saw in the video at the front of the show, is really about 8 different ministries. It's a remarkable group of ministries. We all have different elements. But Liberty Counsel Action is the policy and politics group. We're interested in culture and politics and policy in Washington, D.C. and around the country. We want to come alongside states. If you're in a state struggling with something, if you have an issue, religious liberty issue, somebody's being oppressed by a governmental agency, Liberty Counsel is the flagship organization that does litigation representing them, but Liberty Counsel Action deals with policy. So we are interested in coming alongside of states, and also this water issue with chemical abortions is a huge issue. We want to be a clear voice and a leading voice in helping the whole culture understand this is a severe issue. We need to look at this severely, and we need to stop chemical abortions, period, for a variety of reasons. They're more traumatic to the mother. They're just horrible in the way that they respond to those things, and they're causing a huge contamination of our very water supply. Water should be an issue everybody can embrace around. So it's something that we want to be clear on in the culture.
Well, I appreciate you leading that aspect, Liberty Counsel Action. There's probably none better than John Stemberger to lead that division for Liberty Counsel, and thank you for your leadership and your team around you. And friend, I just want to thank you for continuing to watch these broadcasts every week on your Christian television network, or if you're watching this on a digital platform, like it, share it. Encourage people to get informed. Now more than ever, we must occupy till Jesus comes, wherever our sphere of influence is, wherever God has planted you. And remember, He does know the plans He has for you, friend. They are thoughts of peace and not evil, to give you an expected end, a hope, and a future. Be sure to be engaged in this culture war that we are in. And remember, the light still shines in the darkness. You carry the greatest message there ever is. It's the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is the greatest love story ever told. Get to know it. Until next week, same time, same place, we will see you soon across your Christian television network. God bless you, and we love you.